Greetings, everyone. Good evening. We are back for another great episode of D Live, the Convo series, in green tonight, as everyone should be, when Brigid Kelly is around. And so we will introduce Brigid here in just a moment. Not that she needs any introduction, but we'll give it a moment as people jump online with us, as they tend to do. So thank you, everybody, for supporting. Like, the feedback I've been getting on this is amazing. Believe it or not, I actually put a little bit of work into it. It doesn't seem like it, but on the back end, it's a little bit of work setting things up. But we've had some great guests. We've got some more coming up that are going to be amazing in the next week or two. You guys are going to want to stay tuned for that. So please share this post, and we'll get more eyeballs on it. And we appreciate all the love on social media, at Derek Ballman, of course. And with that being said, Brigid, we've got some folks joining us here. So thank you for joining us this evening on the show. I know this has been a highlight. We've really been looking forward to getting on the big show here. So thank you.
No, it's good to be with you. And I mean, if we can't solve all the world's problems over breakfast, we might as well do it over Facebook. Right?
That's right. We're probably due for one of those again when we can. But in the meantime, we're here. And, I wanted to go, obviously, you were always like on point, on theme, in Kelly green. And so I had to join the club tonight. I was digging deep into my wardrobe to find. You're probably like, I don't know. Do you have anything other than green in your closet? I don't even know.
I mean, I knew this was going to be a really revealing interview, but I was hoping that I wouldn't have to start spilling my secrets.
Well, we're on theme tonight. What's that?
I do have a lot of green in my wardrobe. I do not require my legislative aide to wear green at the State House. And there is not a dress code at any Kelly campaign function.
I don't. First of all, I don't believe that for a minute. But anyway, I'm on theme tonight with even drinking my Sprite Zero with the green can, and the Mickey's Mean Green. If folks remember this from back in the day, this is one out of my vintage collection. Mickey's Mean Green and the Big Mouth Barrel bottle is how the commercial went. But anyway. So let's just kick it off. Pretty much everybody knows Brigid Kelly around here, but for those that might not know the story, we always like to hear the backstory, the background, where you come from, growing up on the mean streets of Norwood, and what was that like? How'd you get here? Now you're our state rep in the 31st district.
Yeah, really, really grateful to be able to serve the citizens of the 31st, which actually goes from north side to Amberley and includes Norwood, which is where I grew up. And interestingly, I grew up in the same house that my mom grew up in. Both my parents are from Norwood. Both sides of my family had always been really engaged in public service. And, Derek, I love to knock on doors, and that's something that I started doing a long time ago when I would go out with my dad when he was running for office. So went to school here, went to St. Ursula Xavier, and then went on to UC and started my job with the AFL-CIO. And then on to the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. So always really involved in politics then, but got my own start on Norwood City Council right when I started with the AFL and after I graduated from college. And it was funny because I'd always been really interested in running for office, but part of the reason why I ran that year is because they couldn't find anybody else to run. And so, I love Norwood, and I cared really deeply about it because I grew up there, I lived there at the time, and I was really excited about the prospect, and I didn't know it at the time, but everybody else thought I was going to lose. The technology wasn't quite where it was now, so instead of, having minivan on our cell phones, it was kind of like, I played soccer with her, and they go to my church, and this guy knows my dad, and my mom is friends with this person, and we ended up winning. But it was a really good learning experience, and really was an honor to be able to serve where I grew up. But I think whether it's Norwood City Council or the State House, it's the same idea of listening to people, hearing them, and working on the issues that are most important to them every single day.
And, the first thing that strikes me, in hearing you talk about that is just super, literally grassroots. We talk about that. It's a little bit of a cliche, I think, in the political realm. But, literally, that's what you're what you're talking about, like the neighborhood bake sale at the school function and the Little League baseball game and meeting the parents. And of course, you grew up there. And what role did your dad have, for those that don't know?
So interestingly, my mom's dad used to be the mayor of Norwood in the 1950s. And then my dad was on council at large, the auditor, and the city solicitor for a long period of time.
So a long history of your political background and family roots in Norwood and public service, which is amazing. So it seems like it was kind of almost maybe preordained, but you certainly took the bull by the horns.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I have two younger brothers, and neither one of them are particularly enamored with the idea of running for office.
Yeah, so somehow it's all the stars have aligned, and certainly Brigid Kelly has a lot of fans even from across the political spectrum. But one of the things that you mentioned that you're involved in for a long time, and maybe when we talk about that, people don't know what it means. But I'm a big labor guy in the council race in 2017. And I was very proud of probably most proud of all the things. Of my 16 labor endorsements. And so with you working, in labor as an organizer, when we say that someone is an organizer, and then we can talk about your current role, but we talk about labor organizer, what does that mean? What does that person do?
So, what a union organizer does is they work with folks who are interested in joining together and forming a union in their workplace, and then they work with them in order to negotiate a first contract. So, the process of forming a union is much more difficult than it needs to be. It's one of the places where our laws really, really fall short, because it's the best way to guarantee your wages. It's the best way to guarantee affordable quality health care. It's the best way to have guarantees about retirement and work rules and things of that nature. So, I think when we talk about working every day to build a better life, there is no better example of that than the work that unions do every day for their members, whether it's teachers or bus drivers or, grocery and packing and processing workers, building tradespeople. So, I think it is really a cornerstone for folks in our community to be able to have the ability to form and join a union and have a better life and a good future and be able to provide for their family.
So, and that's a great point. I spent my last 2 years at Mason PD as our FOP president, and the cops have always been a little weird on and it's been a struggle of mine that I haven't fully been able to wrap my head around with my brothers and sisters there. How they haven't always identified with labor, as much as the other public sector unions. I think the firefighters do a better job of that. And it's kind of a shame because I have these discussions and we're talking about, if you're over here on this team, and these are people trying to take away, you wouldn't even have a union, right? To do away with that, trying to privatize your pension, take that away, healthcare. Literally take your food off the table. And so it's always a struggle that I've had, kind of in that regard. And it's a challenge. And I hope one day, I don't know, that we can move past that and that we have the police, kind of more identifying with the other, working people, especially with other public sector unions like the firefighters who tend to be more, politically engaged that way, I think. What's your sense on that?
Every union operates a little bit differently because every industry is a little bit different. But at the end of the day, people should be able to know that there's a set of rules that exist for their job, and that if those rules are to be changed, that they get a seat at the table and that they have input in how that works. In my experience, there's nobody who is more knowledgeable about the work that union members do than union members. They are experts in their craft. They know what they're doing every day. And so those are the best people to have input from when you're talking about changing work rules or processes or anything else. And I think that's true whether you're a cop or a produce clerk or a nurse.
No, that's great stuff. So speaking of that, and speaking of produce clerk, you're working with the UFCW, United Food Commercial Workers Union. And so that's one of the things I was talking about, especially during the times of COVID, where I'm down at Kroger, a good UFCW union shop and a local company, and I'm talking to the young man working there in the meat department, and he's telling me about how it's such a struggle for him to get to work because, he lives out on the east side in Anderson, and there's the bus route's not good that goes out there, and we were talking about issue 7 and all of that, which is fortunately passed, and that kind of dovetails into my love for the ATU and our bus and streetcar operators. But literally, these were the folks, and I think, if anything, it's a lot of bad coming out of these times of COVID, but one of the good things that's come out of this is that we have a recognition now, more so, I think, just, John Q. Public has a recognition that these typically, low-paid service type of, workers are what we're now calling our frontline heroes, right? We finally recognize that. But that these are the folks that have been, working the off hours, the weekends, the holidays, not getting paid necessarily a living wage, but we're fighting to do that, through organizing and such. But I think we have a greater appreciation for these folks now, working these critical jobs, and everybody else is staying home, but he's still struggling. It takes him an hour to get there, but he's getting to his job at Kroger and feeding us, thankfully. And do you have a sense of that there's more recognition of that now?
I mean, I think that you're right on about that. I mean, certainly we think that our members do incredibly important work every single day, pandemic or not. They are experts in what they do. And I mean, working in a grocery store or a packing and processing plant is really hard work. It's physically demanding, it's repetitious, and certainly working in grocery stores, you're dealing with members of the public all the time, which can be really challenging. But our members are the ones who continue to go to work every day to make sure that there was stuff on the shelves or to help find stuff for folks, to bring them out at great risk to themselves and to their families. But they did that because they're professionals, and they really, create a foundation for people in our community to be able to do one of the most important things that we need to do to be able to live, which is to eat. And so I am grateful that there is some long overdue and very well-deserved recognition, not just for members of UFCW, but again for, the municipal workers and the people who are transit operators and everyone else who has really made sure that our society could continue to function in a really, really difficult time that we're not quite out of yet.
Right. And we see even like when you look at the COVID data, right? And the exposure that some of your members have had to it because they're working with the public every day, even though, now there's the plexiglass and other stuff. But it's these folks in these lower paid roles where like higher paid white collar folks are at home doing all their same thing from a computer in the safety and air conditioned comfort of their home. And these folks are out here working, getting exposed. And I know there were a number of news reports of UFCW, workers that we think they were, exposed at work, and came down, and there were some deaths, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but literally people being exposed to that, going to work every day, not the highest paid or most glamorous job, and they're doing it and getting it done. And it's amazing to me.
Yeah, and it's a challenge, not just here, but all across the country, for service workers and people who are continuing to deal with the public throughout a global pandemic, law enforcement officers, same thing. Right.
And look, I could talk about this stuff all night because I love talking about labor issues, and I'm ready to go, organize, let's run over to Hebron right now and get Amazon organized over there. Last point on that, is there any chance of that? It's so hard, and they do the union busting and all this stuff, and they've got all the power and all the money. And I heard somebody say today, Amazon doesn't want to be, how'd they phrase it? They don't want to take over they want to be the economy. And everything like that. So you have these, major corporations like Walmart and Amazon that are so convenient for us. Like we found during these times, you can just have stuff and it's delivered. But yet you hear the stories from the inside of what what the employees go through over there, and the working conditions are pretty harsh. How do we do that? Is there any path getting a place like an Amazon warehouse organized, or they fire people and threaten them before we even can get started?
I think there is always a path, and it takes leaders in the workplace to come together and to talk to their coworkers and to demand better. I mean, that's one of my favorite quotes is power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. And so I think that is really the crux of union organizing is you're not going to make your workplace better until you demand it, and you're not going to keep it better until you have a contract and you have a seat at the table. And so I think that's why it's really important. We've seen greater interest in organizing unions, particularly in the food industry during the time of COVID, because I think folks were really able to see where companies were falling short. There are some who did an exemplary job, and others who could have done much, much more to ensure that their workers and our family members and our friends and the people we worship with stayed healthy and safe at work.
Right. No, those are good words, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I love to talk about that topic all day, but in our short time that we have here, let's move it along and kind of bring it up to the present day. So you ran for state rep. What was the difference between that kind of a campaign, that kind of a race? It's kind of a little bit gerrymandered. A lot of our districts are. But we've got a great group of state reps representing us here in the Cincinnati area. But moving from Norwood City Council, how have you found that? And then we'll bring it up to let everybody know what your status is and what's going on at the State House right now, because it's crazy down there.
We got plenty to talk about there. Well, I was really excited to run for state rep because it was an opportunity for me to work on the issues that I care deeply about and already was working on every day in my job with the union. And so to be able to help on making policy instead of just trying to convince people to do the right thing by working folks was really what drove me to do that. It's just the idea that everybody should have access to a better life. And so my first term had a little bit of a crazy primary in 2016. There were 6 of us that were running in the Democratic primary. But we have a great team, and I could not have gotten elected without it, and had just incredible support from a huge swath of people that I'm incredibly grateful for. But I mean, we just went out and talked to people about what mattered to them and about the issues that were important to them and about what they wanted to see their legislators working on. And I think that's one of the awesome things about being able to go out and knock doors is you get to meet people and have really important conversations about very meaningful things with folks that you might not otherwise be able to build a relationship with. And so being invited into somebody's house when we were able to, or onto their front porch, or them opening up about the things that are important it's a privilege. And I think it's something that not everybody has the opportunity to be able to enjoy. And so for that, I'm really grateful as well. So we did the 6-way primary, then we had a Republican opponent in 2016, and then ran unopposed in 2018. So I'm running for my 3rd term now, and I'm unopposed this fall.
Well, they learned their lesson. I mean, if you're a glutton for punishment, you'll go up against Brigid Kelly in the 31st district, and basically get the tar beat out of you. So they know better at this point. You've scared them off.
Or not, we like to get out and campaign, and certainly this year we've got a ton of work to do from the top of the ticket with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris all the way down to Alicia Reese for County Commissioner, an amazing slate of judges, and certainly to return my colleagues, Representative Jessica Miranda, Cedric Densing, Kathy Ingram, and send Sarah Bitter on up to Columbus with us. So I think we got a great slate this year.
No, I love it, and actually, hopefully all of those folks will join us. Jessica was with me on the show a couple of weeks ago. Sarah's coming up soon, so we definitely want to do that. And that's one of the things I've appreciated about you also is kind of using your, name recognition and going out and helping other candidates in that regard, knocking doors with other folks. And that's one of the things, to some people it's intimidating, I think, until you do it. But I've loved it, going out not only for myself, but on helping out on other campaigns, and you get to learn about different parts of the city and so forth. But so you can do what? You can do one more term so you can do one more, so you'd be done term limited out in 2022.
After 2022. So
okay.
I would be eligible to run for re-election in 2022 as well.
I got you. And then what? Everybody wants to know. I've seen even, Jason Williams inquires, all this speculation. Is county auditor? I'm hearing some scuttlebutt about that. We don't know if Dusty's going to stick around or what's going on with him. So do we have any insight? Can we break any news here on the show? This is why people need to tune in. We have breaking news.
Well, 2022 and 2024 are light years away, and I am on the ballot in 2020. So we're really just working hard, to get through this election. Because, Derek, let's get real. The presidential election is the most important election of our lifetimes. And I don't care if you're 90 years old or 9 years old or 9 months old. This is the one where we really have to make some change. But, I haven't decided for sure what's next for me. I look at every term as a state rep as a junior opportunity to do the most good for the greatest number of people. And so that's really where I'm focused. But I'm taking a good hard look potentially at running for auditor in 2022, but we'll see.
Well, there you go, folks. Look at that. See, this is why you need to tune in to the D-Lock Show. We're getting a scoop here, I think. So anyway, it's almost like you've done this before. That was a very professional answer, how you spun that back around to 2020. I love it. But nevertheless, we look forward to whatever you're going to do in the future. And I just know you're going to be very successful at it. So I know you're super busy. We don't want to keep you too long. But just, let's touch a little bit first before we go on this craziness, this disaster in our gerrymandered, Republican-controlled state government forever. And, a lot of what's coming out now is that, hey, look, this stuff's been going on for a long time. We've seen it with ECOT, right, and the charter schools, all of this pay to play, and for some reason, everybody's got their blinders on. I don't know. I can't figure it out. But now it's like on Front Street. So what's going on? Give us just a little recap for those that may not know, and then what's the latest news and how do we fix it?
Well, most recently, the House Speaker was replaced because he has been alleged to have been engaged in a $60 million bribery and corruption scandal. Which is a huge black eye on the State House, and because it's made national news. It was related to creating power so that he could be elected Speaker and pass House Bill 6, which was a bailout for First Energy, which provides utility services in the northeastern part of the state, as well as for coal plants in Indiana.
But it's costing. But in doing that, what that did was raise rates for ratepayers across every single ratepayer. Anybody that pays a utility bill in the state of Ohio, this guy raised their rates to serve himself. Am I right on that?
Every ratepayer will be paying a rider related to that. So because they did away with some of the renewable energy standards, every person's bill may be a little bit different, but there will be a rider for everybody in order to pay for that. And so there are a lot of problems with it. But the piece of legislation that's in question, people say it's a jobs bill, but there are no jobs guarantees in it. People say that it's a bill to lower people's rates, but that's not necessarily the case. They said that they needed to save the company because they were not able to make money, but they never proved that either. And then once they got bailed out, they did $300 million in stock buybacks, and we're trying to find a way out of the pensions that were promised to people. And that's not to say anything about the potential impact on the environment. And so, that fell short in a number of ways. But like you said, Derek, you've got one party rule at the State House. People have been turning a blind eye, to bad behavior. And this is where we are. And there is a total lack of trust from the public because people can't believe that folks are going to Columbus and fighting for them and for the things that are important to them because they're reading about a speaker who is alleged to have been engaged in a $60 million corruption scandal.
Not 6, 60, 60 million.
60 million. And,
that's a lot of money.
And part of the challenge, and this is something, that it's hard to get good people to run for office because, public service is challenging, and we need good people who are going to come to work and work on behalf of, citizens and taxpayers and neighbors every single day. But when folks see the nonsense that's happening at the State House, too many people say, "Hey, no, thank you. I don't have the space in my life for that." And so, I'm encouraged that we have a lot of really good people who still do want to run for office and who want to be part of fixing this culture of corruption that has existed for way too long.
No, and the more I hear, like the worse it gets. The way the way that you're laying it out. Of course, they tell you that it's a plan for the rates to go down, but the rates are going up. Like now, down is up in this world. I don't even understand it. So there was some chatter that we heard about because it's still happening. I mean, it was this massive corruption, this massive scandal. Now, if I'm going to pay somebody $60 million, that tells you I want a return on my investment. If I'm given $60 million, I want like a lot more back. So this is massive, like sucking out of every single ratepayer's pocket in the state of Ohio to the tune of, I don't even know how much it's going to cost us in total. Maybe you have that information. But it's still happening, right? Like, because what was passed is still passed. It hasn't been repealed. So is that going to, how do we fix that?
Well, it hasn't been repealed yet. It's worth about $1.5 billion over the next decade. It has not been repealed yet. We have a new speaker. There have been several pieces of legislation that have been introduced to repeal House Bill 6. I should also mention Representative Cedric Denson is one of the joint sponsors of an additional piece of legislation that would roll back a tax benefit that disproportionately benefits the same company who's benefiting from the bailout. That was passed in the budget. People give me a lot of gas because I vote no on a lot of things, but you have to stand by the votes that you make, and bring me something good to vote yes on. I'm not interested in bailing out family for-profit companies. I'm not interested in, disproportionately taxing working people in the state. I'm not interested in making it more difficult for people to have a better life. And so, I tend to vote no a lot, but hopefully this is going to be, a turning the page for a while. And then on election day, we'll really turn the page and put some more checks and balances in, because we're going to elect some new people to serve in the House that I think are better aligned with the priorities of most of the votes in the state.
No, that's some words of wisdom right there. And I'll tell you, folks, I mean, the more you hear, like, this is it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, for a while, it sounds like, hopefully we can get it repealed, but all of the money, and then like just as an added bonus, let's like destroy everything we're doing around renewable energy. I mean, that's just like the cherry on top from a climate and sustainability aspect.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the really disappointing things, and one of the other challenging pieces of this is it's an ongoing investigation. We don't know how big, the net really is. We don't know everyone that has been involved, and it's a sad state of affairs when, the voting public cannot trust all of the people that they send to do the people's work. And so, I think it is a sad situation for the state of Ohio, but it also makes me angry, and it also makes me want to double down on my efforts to elect more people who want to behave like that at the State House.
No, that's great stuff, and I think some words of wisdom to live by. So, in closing, what can you share with us? We're in the final 83 or whatever it is, 84 days. We had an announcement of our vice president, soon to be vice president, we hope. It's just a lot of stuff. We've got COVID, we've got this and that. People are out of work, unemployment. We don't know if Congress is going to fix that, help the local governments. But I want to be positive. I want to be optimistic. And so what do you have for me that's going to guide me forward in that way?
So I'd say a couple things. The best thing that we can do for a better future is to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as president and vice president, vote all the way down the Democratic ticket. I'm so pumped about this ticket and about what they can do. I mean, we need a leader who is willing to lead, and we need a leader who is willing to lead on behalf of everyone, not just some people. So I would say, make some phone calls, talk to your friends and neighbors, drop some lid on somebody's front porch while you're wearing a mask and staying 6 feet away. That's a really important thing. And, I think there's still some time left in the Ohio General Assembly where we, have some potential to do good work. I'm working on a bill to try to legalize sports gaming so that we can have some more money for education, which is sorely needed. We were able to pass the pink tax, finally, so no sales tax on period products. And while I am not optimistic, we are still going to fight like hell to raise the minimum wage in the state of Ohio, and we're going to continue that throughout the rest of this term and into the next, and for as long as it takes.
Now, that's amazing stuff, amazing work, gives us all something to fight and work for. And with your amazing positive attitude, I think that's an example for the rest of us to tap into. I thank you for blessing us with your time and your smiling face this evening. And I'm feeling better about this than I already did. But I started feeling good as soon as I put on the Kelly Green, Mickey's Mean Green shirt tonight. So with that being said, everybody go check out Brigid's website, brigidkelly.com, for more information, how to support her, not only now but in the future. We know that she's going to continue to be a great public servant and leader in Cincinnati and the region, and so we certainly appreciate that. And of course, please follow me at Derek Ballman. Let's see, Twitter, Instagram, all of your favorite social media channels, whatever they may be. And of course, we will upload this to my YouTube channel, Derek Ballman. You can just type that in there and find all of our programs as well. And we're looking forward to some great guests coming up next week. So with that, Brigid, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Cincinnati, as always, love you, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great and safe night.